Have you ever stood beneath the night sky and felt your own insignificance? That moment when you realize you are standing on a tiny ball of rock hurtling through an ocean of darkness so vast that your mind simply refuses to process it. Prepare yourself, because what I am about to share will shatter your understanding of size, distance, and your place in this universe. The universe isn't just big, it is mind-breakingly enormous. So enormous that even our most precise measurements sound like science fiction. We're talking about distances that light itself, the fastest thing in the universe, takes billions of years to cross, and even then covers only a fraction of what might exist. And here is what should keep you awake at night. Everything we can observe may be just a grain of sand compared to what actually exists out there. I am inviting you on a journey that begins right here in your backyard and ends at the very edge of everything we know. Along the way, we'll discover structures so massive that our entire galaxy looks like a speck of dust beside them. We'll examine the shocking possibility that the universe might be infinite, which would mean there is another version of you somewhere out there listening to these exact words. By the end, you'll understand why some of the greatest minds on our planet believe we might be living inside something even more grand and incomprehensible than we ever imagined. But before we plunge into this cosmic abyss, I need to warn you, this journey will change your consciousness in ways you might not be prepared for. The numbers we'll encounter are so large that mathematicians had to invent entirely new ways to write them down. The concepts are so bizarre they seem like fiction, yet they represent the harsh reality of our existence. Let's start with something familiar, your hometown. No matter how big it feels, it seems significant and real to you. Now let's pull back a little. Suddenly, your entire country becomes just a small patch of land, and then Earth itself becomes nothing more than a blue marble floating in the blackness of space. Your city has already vanished. You couldn't make it out even as a single pixel. And this is just the beginning. Our solar system, with all its planets and asteroids, seems enormous to us. But here is the thing, it is not. If you imagine the Sunday as a basketball, Earth would be a grain of sand about 75 feet away from it, and the edge of our entire system would be about 4 miles from that basketball. It is mostly empty space with a few dust particles scattered around. That is our entire cosmic home. Now here is where things get interesting. The nearest star to us sits about 4 light years away. A light year, that is the distance light travels in 1 year, moving at 186,000 miles per second. We're talking roughly 6 trillion miles, so our nearest stellar neighbor is about 24 trillion miles away. To put this in perspective, imagine driving to this star in your car. The trip would take about 30 million years. That is longer than humanity has existed. And this is just the distance to our closest neighbor. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, contains somewhere between 200 and 400 billion stars, most of them significantly farther away. The galaxy itself stretches 100,000 light years across. And here is what is truly staggering. Our galaxy is nothing special. It is not particularly large or small, just average. There are galaxies out there that make the Milky Way look like a dwarf. Take galaxy IC 1101, for example. It is roughly 50 times larger than ours and contains more than 100 trillion stars. That number exceeds the number of cells in your body. But we're not done yet. Galaxies don't just float around randomly in space. They're organized into groups and clusters. The Milky Way belongs to what we call the local group, about 80 galaxies spread across 10 million light years. But even this pales in comparison to massive clusters like the Coma cluster, which contains over 1,000 galaxies. or the Perseus cluster with more than 300 these gigantic structures, held together by gravity and dark matter, stretch across hundreds of millions of light years. But even this isn't the limit. The clusters themselves are organized into even larger structures, called superclusters. We're part of the Laniakea Supercluster, which contains about 100,000 galaxies and stretches across 520 million light years. Let's slow down here. For light to cross from one edge of our supercluster to the other would take more than 500 million years. This means that by the time light leaving one edge of our supercluster reaches the other side, our sunday will have already burned out. But superclusters aren't the final destination. They're connected to each other by vast filaments of dark matter and galaxies, forming what we call the cosmic web. Try to imagine the most grandiose structure possible, then realize that it is just a single fiber in a colossal cosmic network that permeates all of observable reality. When scientists use the term observable universe, they're not talking about the universe as a whole, just the part that is accessible to our view from Earth. The limit of what we can see extends about 46.5 billion light years in every direction. Here is where you might ask a logical question. If the universe is only 13.8 billion years old, how can we observe objects 46.5 billion light years away? Logic suggests the boundary should be at 13.8 billion light years, right? This is where things get mind-bending. The universe has been continuously expanding all this time. Light that began its journey toward us in the distant past had to chase us while we ourselves were moving away from its source. By the time this light finally reaches Earth, the object that emitted it is now at an immeasurably greater distance than when this long journey began. This means the observable universe represents a sphere with a diameter of roughly 93 billion light years, containing about 2 trillion galaxies. Think about that, 2 trillion galaxies, each one potentially containing hundreds of billions of stars, with planets orbiting each star. The sheer scale of this can genuinely overwhelm the imagination. But here is a thought that might keep you awake tonight. Our observable universe might be just an infinitesimal fraction of the real universe. We can only see as far as light has managed to travel since the Big Bang. Beyond this boundary, there could be infinite space containing an infinite number of galaxies and everything else. Some cosmologists believe the universe is literally boundless. If this is true, then every possible event must occur and will occur an infinite number of times. This suggests the existence of countless copies of Earth, countless copies of you, and infinite variations of your life where you made different decisions. Somewhere out there, there is a version of you that became a professional athlete, another that never learned to read, and yet another that invented time travel. Even if the universe isn't infinite, its true size probably far exceeds what we can observe. The most conservative estimates suggest it is at least 250 times larger than the observable part. This means its diameter is approximately 23 trillion light years, containing more galaxies than there are atoms in your body. But even this might not represent the limit of scale. Some theories propose that our universe is just one bubble in a boundless multiverse, where each bubble represents a complete reality with its own Big Bang, its own laws of physics, and its own endless expanses. There could very well be universes where the physical laws are slightly different, where stars never formed, and life never emerged. There might be worlds so alien to our understanding that we simply don't have words to describe them. Other hypotheses suggest that our universe is part of some higher multidimensional structure that we're fundamentally incapable of perceiving. It is like a character drawn on a sheet of paper, trying to comprehend the three-dimensional room in which that sheet exists. Perhaps this is exactly how we're trying to make sense of reality, existing in dimensions that our brains simply weren't designed to perceive. The deeper we delve into studying the scales of existence, the clearer it becomes how vanishingly small our knowledge really is. Every time we think we've discovered the largest possible structure, we find something even more grandiose. Every time we believe we've grasped the boundaries of reality, those boundaries recede further and further away. And here is what makes this picture even more overwhelming. All these unimaginably enormous structures, from galactic clusters to the cosmic web, originated from a region smaller than a proton in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang. Everything we see, everything that exists, space and time themselves were once compressed into a point so small that atoms would seem like giants in comparison. The universe didn't just grow larger, it expanded at a rate that defies human comprehension. In the first tiny fraction of a second, it grew from subatomic to cosmic scale faster than light could cross a proton. This process, known as cosmic inflation, is so extreme that any other growth seems insignificant by comparison. The fastest growing corporation in history? Nothing. The most powerful volcanic eruption? A gentle breeze. The early universe expanded so rapidly that everything else seems motionless in comparison. This is where your brain might experience genuine shock. During this inflation, different regions of space moved away from each other faster than the speed of light. This means information couldn't be transmitted from one region to another. They became causally disconnected, essentially turning into separate universes that can never interact or influence each other. And this process continues to this day. Right now, there are regions of space moving away from us so fast that their light will never reach us. No matter how long we wait, no matter how much we advance our technology, we'll never be able to learn what is happening in those distant places. From our perspective, they might as well not exist. This phenomenon creates what scientists call the cosmic horizon. It is not a physical barrier you could run into, but a fundamental limit to what we can ever know about the universe. Beyond this horizon, there could be anything. Civilizations that have existed for trillions of years, technologies that would seem like magic to us, entire galactic empires that have risen and fallen without leaving the slightest trace for us to detect. And here is the most troubling part. This horizon is actually shrinking. Dark energy is driving the accelerating expansion of space, which means galaxies we can observe today will eventually disappear beyond our cosmic horizon. Billions of years from now, future civilizations will see a much more desolate cosmos than we do, and they might conclude that their star system is alone in infinite darkness. It is remarkable that all the matter we're familiar with, stars, planets, and everything we can see or touch, makes up less than 5% of the universe's total mass. About 27% of reality consists of dark matter, a mysterious substance that doesn't emit light and, except for gravity, doesn't interact with ordinary matter in ways we can detect. We know of its existence only through its gravitational influence on galaxies, but its true nature remains a complete mystery to us. The remaining 68% is dark energy, an even more incomprehensible entity that is causing the very fabric of space to expand with acceleration, literally tearing the cosmos apart. So we exist in a universe where 95% is completely unknown to us, like ants trying to comprehend the nature of the internet. Some physicists propose even more startling hypotheses, suggesting that our universe might not be metaphorically, but literally, a hologram. According to the holographic principle, all information contained in a three-dimensional volume of space can be encoded on its two-dimensional boundary. This would mean our reality is just a projection from a surface located at the edge of the universe. Another theory suggests we might be living in a sophisticated computer simulation created by a super-advanced civilization. If computational power continues growing exponentially, the statistical probability that we're in one of many simulated universes, rather than the single-base reality, becomes very high. There is also a concept that our universe represents just one membrane, or brain drifting in multidimensional space. These membranes can collide, generating events like the Big Bang and giving birth to new universes. In that case, all our reality might be the consequence of a grandiose cosmic collision in dimensions beyond our perception. But even if we set aside these speculative theories and focus on observable facts, the scale of the cosmos still exceeds human imagination. The visible part of the universe alone contains approximately 10 to the 80th power atoms. That is a 1 followed by 80 zeros. Just to write this number down would require more paper than exists on our planet. And remember, we're only talking about the atoms we can detect. If we assume the universe is infinite, then the total number of atoms has no limit, extending forever in all directions. In an infinite universe, where an infinite number of atoms can combine in every conceivable way, every possible combination must exist somewhere. Since the number of ways atoms can be arranged in a volume equal to a human body is finite, after exhausting all combinations, repetitions inevitably begin. This means somewhere in the cosmos exist your infinite exact copies. Not just similar people, but perfect atomic duplicates living identical lives on identical planets. Beyond this, there is an infinite number of variations where only one atom differs, where you made a different decision at a crucial moment, or where the course of history went slightly differently. Somewhere there is a version of you that became a world leader, another that never learned to walk, one born in ancient times, and yet another destined to be born trillions of years from now when all the stars have burned out. If this is true, then everything that could ever happen is happening right now in some corner of infinite space. But here is the most disturbing thought. In an infinite cosmos, not only does everything possible occur, but everything impossible happens too. There must be regions where the fundamental laws of physics are violated, where effect precedes cause, and objects can exist in multiple places simultaneously. Inside our universe, there might be others operating by rules so alien that it is difficult even to call them universes. Pocket dimensions where time flows backward, and the very concept of existence has a completely different meaning. And all of this, every inconceivable thing you can and cannot imagine, might be happening right now. So the main question isn't how big the universe is, but whether there is any meaningful difference between its unimaginable scale and true infinity. The question of whether the universe is finite or infinite loses its sharpness when we realize its scale. From a human perspective, it is boundless either way. Against this cosmic vastness, we represent something less than dust particles. Our existence is merely a fleeting disturbance in an ocean of space-time so grandiose that entire civilizations can rise and fall without leaving the slightest ripple on its surface. And yet, against all odds, we exist. We possess consciousness and the ability to comprehend our position in this immensity. We can contemplate it, measure it, and strive to understand it. Perhaps this awareness is the most remarkable phenomenon in the entire universe. Think about it. From the chaos of countless atoms, from dead rocks and burning gas giants, from icy emptiness, matter somehow organized itself to such a degree that it could look at itself and question its own existence. You are the universe that has gained the ability for self-knowledge. The carbon in your body was synthesized in the thermonuclear furnaces of dying stars, and the oxygen you breathe arose from supernova explosions billions of years ago. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the phosphorus in your DNA. All these elements were scattered across the cosmos during great cataclysms, then gathered by gravity into the planet on which you stand. You are not a separate observer. You are the universe itself, contemplating itself through a temporary configuration of its own atoms. When you think about the expanse of the cosmos, something truly extraordinary happens. Cosmic matter reflects on its own cosmic context. And here is where the scale of what is happening becomes not just overwhelming, but genuinely unsettling. If we try to visualize the real structure of the observable universe, we see that the galaxy superclusters I mentioned form an even more massive formation, the cosmic web. Its visualization is strikingly reminiscent of something familiar. Compare the structure of neural networks in the human brain with the largest structures in the universe. The similarity is practically complete. We see gigantic filaments of matter connecting at nodes, with colossal voids between them. It creates the impression that the universe itself is organized like a giant brain, where galaxies are arranged along cosmic neurons, stretching billions of light years. This similarity might not be coincidental. Some scientists suggest there is a connection between consciousness and cosmic structure that we have yet to understand. Perhaps the universe isn't just enormous. Perhaps it possesses thought, and we're merely thoughts in its cosmic mind, flickering and fading in a nanosecond of universal contemplation. If that is not enough to confuse you, let's consider the problem of the so-called edge of the universe. We know about the boundary of the observable world, the cosmic horizon beyond which we cannot see. But what is on the other side? This question haunts cosmologists. The boundary isn't a physical wall or surface. It represents only the limit that light has managed to reach since the Big Bang. Beyond this horizon, space most likely continues, hiding new galaxies, clusters, and superclusters, extending into infinity. And here lies a truly exciting thought. If space is infinite, then the brain-like structure of the cosmic web we observe is just an insignificant fragment of an immeasurably larger picture. It is like trying to understand the human brain by studying just one synaptic connection. Perhaps this is exactly what we're doing when we study the cosmos. The universe might contain structures so enormous that our observable world is no more than a single neuron in an unimaginably gigantic cosmic mind. In that case, if the universe truly is infinite, this pattern repeats forever. Infinite cosmic brains generating infinite thoughts, with smaller thinking structures like ours inside them, and so on, forming an endless hierarchy of consciousness at all conceivable levels. But let's go even further. As I mentioned, light from distant galaxies travels to us for billions of years. This means when we look at distant objects, we see their past. The farther we look, the deeper we plunge into the stream of time. Astronomers call this the light cone, a boundary in space-time that defines the limits of our knowledge about the universe. Over time, this cone expands, allowing us to look farther into space and, correspondingly, into the past. Theoretically, with perfect instruments and infinite patience, We could capture light from objects so distant that we'd see the universe moments after its birth. We would witness the birth of the cosmos, the formation of the first stars, and early galaxies. However, there is one important circumstance. The universe isn't just expanding. It is doing so with acceleration. This means objects visible to us today will eventually be carried beyond our cosmic horizon by expanding space. Trillions of years from now, future astronomers will find themselves in a much more desolate cosmos. Only the local group of galaxies will be accessible to their view, with everything else hidden beyond the event horizon. They might very well conclude that their small galactic cluster is the entire universe, never suspecting the existence of the giant cosmic web we observe today. This raises a fundamental question. What are we missing right now? What grandiose structures and patterns remain beyond our perception? Have you ever wondered what cosmic phenomena are hidden beyond the boundaries of our current observational instruments? It is quite likely that we, like past astronomers, are mistaken in considering our vision of the world comprehensive, while a huge part of reality remains hidden from us. After all, every time we build more powerful telescopes, we discover that the universe is far more complex and amazing than we assume. First, we discovered galaxies, then their clusters, then superclusters, and finally, the colossal cosmic web. Each new discovery revealed increasingly massive and organized structures, exceeding all expectations. There is no reason to believe this path of discovery has come to an end. Most likely, there are cosmic formations compared to which superclusters seem as insignificant as galaxies appear against the superclusters themselves. We can't even imagine the patterns and forms of organization that exist on scales far beyond our understanding and observational capabilities. And this brings us to an even more startling thought, emerging from the fundamental laws of physics. According to modern scientific understanding, nothing, including information, can move faster than the speed of light. This limit creates so-called causal horizons, invisible boundaries beyond which events unfold that are forever hidden from us. There, in unreachable regions of space, entire galactic civilizations could have emerged and disappeared. Wars could have been waged encompassing star systems, and technologies could have been created that would seem like true magic to us. But none of these events could ever influence us or be noticed by us. We exist in a kind of cosmic isolation, surrounded by an infinite multitude of phenomena that we're destined never to interact with or even know about their existence. This can be compared to being in a soundproof room while countless orchestras perform their eternal symphonies outside. And this isolation concerns not only space, but also time. The age of the universe is 13.8 billion years, while human civilization is only about 10,000 years old, and we've been looking through telescopes for about 400 years. We've known about the existence of other galaxies for less than a century. On cosmic scales, we only opened our eyes a moment ago. We're cosmic infants who are just beginning to comprehend an ancient and immense reality that developed long before our appearance and is destined to exist for eons after our disappearance. Meanwhile, the pace of cosmic evolution is simply staggering. While you are reading this sentence, the universe is expanding millions of kilometers in all directions. New stars are being born, and old ones are dying, and entire planetary systems are forming or being destroyed. The cosmic web is continuously shifting and changing. If we had sufficiently sensitive instruments, we could see this happening. We don't just inhabit an enormous universe, but one that is constantly changing, growing, and evolving every second. The cosmos you are in right now is no longer the same as it was at the beginning of this story. Space itself has expanded, carrying distant galaxies even farther away and creating new volumes of emptiness filled with dark energy. And this expansion isn't slowing down, it is accelerating. The mysterious force known as dark energy, which makes up most of the universe's mass, energy, is tearing the very fabric of space at an ever-increasing rate. Eventually, this acceleration will lead to what cosmologists call the Big Rip. First, gravitational bonds will weaken so much that galactic clusters will break apart. Then the galaxies themselves will be torn apart as space expansion exceeds the forces holding them together. Finally, if the acceleration doesn't stop, even atoms might be split, and the fabric of reality will be literally destroyed, leaving behind only chaotically scattered subatomic particles in infinitely expanding emptiness. Fortunately, this scenario awaits us only after trillions of years. For now, we exist in a brief moment of cosmic history, when the universe's age and size are perfectly suited for complex structures to emerge. We live in what astrophysicists call the stellar era, a time when nuclear fusion still powers stars, making life possible. But even this era won't last forever. Eventually, all hydrogen will be exhausted, and new stars will stop forming. Existing stars will burn out one by one, leaving behind only dark remnants, white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. The universe will plunge into the degenerate era, a dark period lasting unimaginable trillions of years. But even black holes will eventually evaporate through Hawking radiation, leaving behind only a cold, empty world of elementary particles and photons. This final stage, called heat death, will last virtually forever. And here is what makes you really think about all this. Despite the incredible vastness of space and the almost infinite duration of time, despite the universal cosmic tendency toward chaos and emptiness, here we are against all odds. Consciousness arose at the only brief cosmic moment when it is possible to see and understand the universe's structure. We appeared precisely at the time when we can observe the cosmic web, see distant galaxies, and realize our place in this grandiose picture. If we had appeared earlier, the universe would have been too hot and chaotic for meaningful observations. If we appeared much later, it would become too dark and empty, with distant galaxies forever hidden beyond the event horizon. We live in a unique temporal window when mind can emerge and encompass the full scale of reality. This seems like an incredible coincidence, but perhaps it is not. Maybe consciousness and the cosmos are interconnected much more deeply than we're only beginning to suppose. Some physicists already suggest that consciousness might be as fundamental a property of reality as mass or electric charge. According to this concept, consciousness doesn't arise from complex material structures, but is an inherent property of reality at all levels of its organization, from elementary particles to galaxy clusters and the universe as a whole. If we accept this hypothesis, then you represent something more than just a temporary accumulation of atoms, contemplating the cosmos. You are the cosmos itself, knowing itself through these temporary atomic combinations. Your thoughts, dreams, and questions about the universe might be a literal manifestation of the universe's self-awareness. If consciousness is truly fundamental, then the colossal size of the universe takes on a completely new meaning. It is no longer just a measure of space-time and matter, but an indicator of the scale of cosmic mind, the depth of universal self-analysis, and the level of being investigating itself. Thus, the universe might be boundless, not only spatially, but also mentally, containing every conceivable idea, every imaginable image, and every possible question existing somewhere in its endless consciousness. Your own consciousness in such a paradigm is just a tiny spark in the infinite cosmic mind, invisibly connected to all other forms of consciousness in time and space. This brings us to an idea capable of radically changing your perception of reality. Up to this point, we've considered the universe as a single grandiose structure. But what if I told you that everything we've discussed, every galactic cluster, the entire cosmic web stretched across 93 billion light years, is just the tiniest bubble in an ocean of countless other universes? We're entering the realm of the hypothetical multiverse, the supposed ensemble of all conceivable worlds. Get ready, because this is where scientific thought reaches the limits of imagination. Imagine a multitude of soap bubbles floating in the air, where each one is a separate, self-sufficient universe, with its own unique physical characteristics. Now imagine that each such bubble is an entire cosmos, with its own Big Bang, its own set of physics laws, its own galaxies, and possibly unique forms of life. And instead of a handful of bubbles, we face their infinite multitude, continuously arising and disappearing in something resembling cosmic foam with neither beginning nor end. This isn't science fiction, but a serious scientific hypothesis known as eternal inflation, which logically follows from leading theories about our world's origin. According to some models, the rapid expansion of space after the Big Bang, exceeding the speed of light, never completely stopped. It ceased only in separate regions like our observable universe, but continues eternally in other areas. Each region where inflation slows down creates a bubble universe with its own unique set of properties. In these worlds, the laws of physics might be radically different. Gravity could be stronger or weaker, and electromagnetic interactions might follow different principles. Some such universes might be completely sterile, incapable of forming atoms, while others might be so unstable they collapse almost immediately after birth. But the most amazing part comes next. If there is an infinite number of universes with all possible combinations of physical laws, then among them, there will inevitably be worlds practically indistinguishable from ours. Universes where Earth formed and life emerged, but with barely noticeable differences. Somewhere there is a world where you chose different clothes today. In another, you devoted yourself to a different profession. In one, you never came into existence, and in another, you became a key figure in humanity's history. The mathematics of infinity asserts that every possible variation is realized somewhere. And this applies not only to personal destinies. There are universes where dinosaurs avoided extinction, where humanity descended from different ancestors, and all of Earth's history went down a completely different path. There are worlds where our solar system includes other planets, where the Milky Way has a different shape, and the cosmic web wove completely different patterns. However, there are far stranger variants. In some universes, nature's fundamental constants are changed so much that matter as we know it simply cannot exist. Imagine a world where completely different particles exist, instead of atoms, living by absolutely different rules, and processes occur instead of chemistry for which we don't even have concepts. Imagine a universe where space has more than 3 dimensions accessible for perception and movement, or a world where time flows in reverse. Or perhaps there is a reality where consciousness is a physical force, like gravity. Thoughts have mass, and dreams can change reality. All these amazing possibilities and infinite multitudes of others we can't even imagine exist somewhere in the boundless multiverse. And here is what is truly disturbing. If the multiverse is infinite, it realizes not only everything possible, but also everything that seems impossible. This implies the existence of worlds where logic laws are violated, where contradictions can be simultaneously true and false, and causal relationships are arranged in ways that would drive us insane. In such unimaginable worlds, mathematics itself might work differently. 2 plus 2 would equal pi, and infinity would have a finite value. The multiverse thus contains not only all possible realities, but all impossible ones. Any nightmare scenario, any utopian dream, and every logical contradiction, all of it is embodied somewhere. And if this isn't enough to rob you of peace, consider that we have absolutely no way to experimentally confirm the multiverse's existence. By definition, other worlds are completely isolated from ours. Since information exchange between hypothetical universes is impossible, we can never obtain evidence of their existence. Thus, the multiverse, the hypothetical set of all possible worlds, risks remaining forever an unknowable truth for us, possibly a key fact about reality that we're powerless to confirm. We might be inhabitants of a tiny fragment of an infinite structure, beside which our universe seems insignificant, like an atom, and never realize it. However, let's leave hypotheses and return to our universe's boundaries, because even its observable scales exceed human imagination. Consider, for example, the so-called Great Attractor, a gravitational anomaly about 150 million light-years away from us. This object has such colossal mass that it attracts the Milky Way and thousands of neighboring galaxies, forcing them to move at speeds over 1,300 miles per second. Although our galaxy's plane hides the Great Attractor from direct observation, its gravitational influence is absolutely obvious. This invisible giant pulls our entire neighborhood into a cosmic whirlpool. And it is far from the only such structure. There are other gigantic formations that deform the cosmic web in ways we've only partially studied. For example, the Shapley Supercluster, uniting over 8,000 galaxies, influences matter movement within hundreds of millions of light-years through its mass. In turn, the cold spot discovered in the cosmic microwave background radiation, also known as relic radiation, might indicate the presence of a colossal void casting a gravitational shadow on the entire observable universe. The staggering sizes of these formations challenge our understanding of cosmic evolution after the Big Bang, because according to current models, gravity simply didn't have time to gather matter into such massive configurations. Nevertheless, these structures are real and extend through space like silent witnesses to forces whose nature we don't yet know. Perhaps the gigantic structures we observe are just the lower level of an even more grandiose hierarchy. The existence of such colossal accumulations of matter and energy isn't impossible, compared to which even galaxy superclusters would seem like dust particles. And our entire visible universe would be just an analog of one cell in a gigantic cosmic organism. Reflection on cosmic scales inevitably leads to one of the most exciting assumptions. We probably aren't the pinnacle of the intelligence hierarchy. If consciousness represents a product of matter's complex organization, as in the human brain's case, then the existence in the universe of structures exceeding our brain's complexity by billions of times also allows for the presence of intellect that surpasses ours as much as we surpass the simplest microorganisms. Try to imagine a mind that operates with entire galaxies as neurons, and its thought processes last millions of years. If we accept the hypothesis of the universe's infinity, then the emergence of such cosmic minds becomes not just probable, but inevitable. In a boundless cosmos, matter must have arranged itself into all conceivable forms, including those that generate entities with almost divine abilities that seem like magic to us. Such cosmic intellects could control the very fabric of space and time, creating and destroying entire worlds with ease comparable to our work with digital information. Their development level might be so high that all our reality turns out to be just a complex simulation running on their computational systems. And it is worth noting that some modern scientists seriously consider this hypothesis. But here is the truly startling thought. Even if such entities exist, they're probably puzzled by reality's fundamental nature, no less than we are. Regardless of development level, any mind remains part of the universe it strives to understand. Even these cosmic gods could create telescopes the size of star systems, but they would inevitably face the main question: why does anything exist at all? These questions probably have no solution, not due to lack of technology or intellect, but because they concern the very foundation of being. All this leads us to perhaps the most profound conclusion. The universe's greatness is measured not only in space and time, but in the depth of its mysteries. Every new piece of knowledge only expands the horizon of our ignorance, and every answer obtained immediately generates new questions. We've managed to map the cosmic web, but we still have no idea about dark matter's nature. We've measured space expansion speed, but don't know what dark energy represents, the hypothetical form of energy causing this accelerated expansion. We've learned to detect gravitational waves, but can't see beyond the veil of mystery hiding events before the Big Bang. Having discovered thousands of exoplanets, we still haven't gotten an answer to the main question: are we alone in the universe? The more we learn, the more clearly the contours of our ignorance emerge. If we assume the universe is boundless, then our ignorance might be equally limitless. Perhaps before us stretches an infinite field of riddles and questions, such depths of reality that no intellect, however powerful, could exhaust them. But maybe this is precisely the highest design, so that consciousness always has a horizon for new discoveries, unexplored territories for research, and new layers of reality for understanding. Within a finite, albeit colossal universe, mind could ultimately map every star, catalog every particle, and find a solution for any equation. But in an infinite cosmos, there will always be something beyond the known. There will always be another galaxy to explore, another dimension to discover, and another mystery requiring solution. Thus, we find ourselves in the most amazing of all possible positions. We are conscious beings in a universe whose immensity serves as a guarantee of endless adventures, discoveries, and boundless possibilities for intellectual and spiritual growth. We are direct participants in a cosmic drama so grandiose it is impossible to tell completely, so complex it cannot be fully understood, and so beautiful it cannot be appreciated in full measure. The universe isn't just huge. That word cannot convey its essence. It is so immense it breaks any conception we have of size, scale, and meaning. Its infinity manifests not only in space, but in countless possibilities, mysteries, and potential that consciousness can explore, comprehend, and admire. And you, contemplating these cosmic scales right here and now, are an integral part of all this, woven into the very fabric of this boundless reality. The atoms making up your body participated in this cosmic dance billions of years before your birth, and will continue their movement billions of years after you are gone. But precisely at this brief moment, they organized into a structure capable of contemplating itself and its place in the history of creation. You are the universe gaining self-awareness, matter learning to understand its own existence, mind born from the boundless complexity of cosmic evolution. The key question isn't so much what size the universe is, but what heights consciousness can reach, how far our awareness can extend, and how deeply we can penetrate the infinite mystery of being. Finding an answer to this question might require an entire eternity, and that is perfect, because if the universe truly is infinite, we have all the time necessary to explore it. However, even this stunning cosmic perspective is just a surface glimpse of what we've encountered. There is something in space's very nature that can completely overturn what you think are your established concepts of reality. When we talk about the universe's size, we tend to imagine it as some kind of container, an empty box filled with stars and galaxies. But this representation is fundamentally wrong. Space isn't a vessel for objects. It is itself a substance, a dynamic, constantly changing and evolving fabric, whose transformations contradict all our intuitive ideas about how the world works. Right now, at this very second, space itself is expanding. And we're not talking about objects flying apart from each other. The distances between any points are increasing, as if someone is stretching reality's very matrix without moving anything through it. This expansion process occurs everywhere, simultaneously, even in the gap between your eyes and the screen. But at such small distances, its effect is negligible and completely compensated by electromagnetic forces binding atoms. But on cosmic scales, expansion becomes the dominant force. And here is the most amazing part. It is not slowing down, as you might expect, after some initial impulse, but accelerating instead. Some unknown force is actively stretching space, and this force makes up the main part of our universe. We've given it the name dark energy, but it is just an elegant way of admitting we have no idea about its nature. It is like suddenly discovering that most of your house consists of invisible material you can't touch or measure, and its existence is revealed only by its effect on surrounding objects. This is exactly the position we're in with this hypothetical energy. But dark energy isn't the most surprising part of the picture yet. Let's examine what happens when space expansion reaches such speed that it breaks causal relationships themselves. I already mentioned that some parts of the cosmos are moving away from us faster than light speed, and this phenomenon creates the so-called cosmological horizon. Events occurring beyond this line physically cannot affect us, no matter how long we wait, and it's not just that we can't see what is happening there. The point is that everything beyond this horizon exists in a completely separate causal universe, in no way connected to ours. Just imagine what this means. Somewhere out there, civilizations might exist right now that have been sending us messages for millions of years. They could have created planetary-sized transmitters, broadcasting secrets of faster-than-light travel, cures for aging, or the answer to the question of existence's meaning. But we'll never receive these signals because space between us is expanding faster than light can overcome it. We exist inside a kind of causality bubble, surrounded on all sides by a boundless multitude of events that might unfold in a completely different reality. Due to the universe's accelerated expansion, this bubble is actually shrinking. Galaxies we can theoretically interact with today will eventually irreversibly disappear beyond our cosmological horizon. Future civilizations existing trillions of years from now will find themselves in a much more desolate and isolated cosmos, seeing only their local group of galaxies and nothing beyond. These future observers might conclude that their small stellar cluster is the entire universe, never suspecting the existence of the giant cosmic web we can contemplate today. But what can truly puzzle is the probability that we ourselves are in an analogous position right now. It is quite possible that entire categories of cosmic phenomena, structures, and patterns existed in the past that have already disappeared beyond our visibility. We might be like those future astronomers who are confident in their worldview's completeness, while actually lacking access to a significant part of reality. But this isn't the limit yet. Some cosmological models predict that accelerating expansion will ultimately lead to the destruction of everything we observe. First, galactic clusters will lose gravitational connection with their constituent galaxies. Then, the galaxies themselves will be torn apart as space begins expanding faster than the forces that can hold them together. Finally, if acceleration continues growing, even atoms might be split. This scenario, known as the Big Rip, will literally destroy the fabric of reality. Even if we manage to avoid such catastrophe, the universe still moves inexorably toward a cold and dark finale. In this future, all stars will burn out. Black holes will evaporate through Hawking radiation, and infinite space will contain nothing but elementary particles scattered over enormous distances. Yet, despite all these predictions, consciousness capable of contemplating its own existence appeared in the current brief cosmic moment when complexity is possible. We live in a negligibly small segment of cosmic history when intelligence can emerge and comprehend the universe's structure. Before our era, the cosmos was too hot and chaotic, and after it will become too cold and empty. The very fact that conscious beings appeared at the only suitable time for observing the cosmic web seems like an incredible coincidence, if it can be called coincidence at all. A number of physicists propose that consciousness might be an inherent part of reality's fundamental laws. From this perspective, awareness isn't a random product of complex chemistry, but something inherent to every level of matter's organization, from quantum particles to galaxy superclusters and the universe itself. If this is so, then when you contemplate the cosmos's boundlessness, you aren't a separate entity from it. You are the cosmos itself, studying itself through temporary combinations of its own atoms. Your thoughts about infinity might be literally infinity itself, contemplating itself. If consciousness is reality's fundamental property, then the universe might be boundless, not only in space and time, but in terms of awareness. This means every possible thought, any conceivable experience, and every imaginable form of consciousness might exist somewhere in the vast expanse of universal mind. But let's go even further into the realm of truly stunning ideas. What if our entire universe, with all its galaxies, dark energy, and horizons, is just a tiny part of something unimaginably more massive? This thought brings us to the holographic principle, one of the most striking concepts in modern physics. According to this theory, all information contained in a specific volume of space can actually be encoded on its boundary, like a hologram on a credit card that contains a three-dimensional image, although all information about it is stored on a two-dimensional surface. If this principle is correct, then our three-dimensional reality might be a projection of information recorded on a two-dimensional surface at the universe's edge. Everything you've ever experienced, every star you've seen, and every thought might be just shadows cast by information patterns from a smaller number of dimensions. Some theories go even further, suggesting our universe is a membrane, or brain floating in multidimensional space called the bulk. These brains can collide with each other, generating big bangs and new universes. Thus, all our reality might be the consequence of a cosmic collision in dimensions we can't even imagine. Other models suggest we live inside a black hole that itself exists in a universe with more dimensions. From our internal perspective, we observe an expanding cosmos arising from the Big Bang. But from outside, we might be just information falling into a singularity and distorted by extreme gravity. Finally, there is the simulation hypothesis, according to which our entire universe might be a computer program run by some super-advanced civilization. If computational power continues growing exponentially, future civilizations will be able to create simulations of entire universes with conscious inhabitants who won't suspect their virtual nature. Statistically, if this is possible, the number of simulated universes will eventually significantly exceed the number of real ones, increasing the probability that we ourselves live in a simulation rather than so-called base reality. Every star you see in the sky, every galaxy we've discovered, every measurement of cosmic expansion, all this might be just program code executed on an unimaginably powerful computer. And the most troubling aspect of this idea is that we have no way to definitively prove or disprove it. Any evidence we gather, any experiment we conduct, and any observation we make might simply be part of this programmed reality. We might very well be digital entities living in a virtual world, and our study of the cosmos actually amounts to exploring the parameters of our own software code. However, regardless of whether we're real or simulated, whether we're in fundamental reality or some projection of it, the grandeur of questions we're asking is astounding. After all, even if our world is just a computer model, there must be the computer itself, and therefore the reality in which it was created, a reality probably even more massive and multifaceted than our own. Such logic generates an infinite chain of probabilities where we might be simulations running on computers that are themselves simulations on even more advanced machines. Reality in this case appears as a system of worlds nested within each other, and at each level its inhabitants consider their world authentic, not suspecting they're just a program in something larger. But what if this nesting is bidirectional, and we ourselves, being part of one simulation, simultaneously create our own digital worlds populated by conscious beings, convinced of their reality's fundamental nature? It is possible that consciousness and simulation represent fractal patterns repeating at all levels of being, where one mind generates another in an infinite hierarchy of awareness. This fractal nature might extend to our world's physical structure, too. We've already noted how the cosmic web resembles neural networks, and galactic clusters look like brain cells connected by giant filaments. What if this isn't a simple coincidence, but a manifestation of a unified phenomenon of consciousness and cosmic structure operating at different scales? In such a paradigm, every living being might be a miniature universe, and every universe a gigantic thinking organism. The thoughts in your head might then turn out to be galaxies in a microcosm, and all our cosmic web just a fleeting thought in an unimaginably enormous mind. With such an assumption, the question of the universe's size loses all meaning because scale becomes relative, and not absolute magnitudes but complex patterns and interrelationships at each organizational level come to the forefront. These patterns might possess boundless complexity. The deeper we plunge into the microworld, or the farther we direct our gaze into space. The more new structural levels, organizational forms, and types of consciousness we might discover. It is precisely this infinite complexity that can explain why the universe seems perfectly adapted for mind's existence. Perhaps it is not that physical constants were precisely selected by someone for life's emergence, but that consciousness is an inevitable property of any sufficiently complex system. And complexity itself is an inherent feature of any sufficiently large universe. We appeared not because the world was created specifically for us, but because it is so enormous and full of possibilities that any imaginable structure will eventually emerge somewhere. Thus, consciousness isn't a rare and improbable miracle, but a natural result of matter and energy interaction on cosmic scales of time and space. However, even such a seemingly comprehensive view might not touch something most important in reality's nature. There is another hypothesis capable of overturning all previous reasoning. What if the very concept of size is fiction? What if space, time, matter, and energy are just different manifestations of something more fundamental, devoid of extension, duration, and mass? Some directions in quantum gravity allow that our space and time are derivatives of certain basic structures lying beyond our familiar ideas about scale. These structures might be purely informational, mathematical, or represent something so alien that we simply have no words for it in our language. From such a position, being interested in the universe's size is as meaningless as asking about the weight of blue color or the volume of the number 7. The question itself is built on categories inapplicable to being's true nature. Perhaps the universe is neither large nor small. It simply exists, and our concepts of magnitude have meaning only within the framework of illusory space-time. Contemplating the cosmos, we might be like video game characters trying to understand the computer they're running on. This computer isn't located in their game space, and its dimensions aren't comparable to in-game objects, because it belongs to a completely different category of being. If our world is arranged similarly, then all our measurements of cosmic distances and the universe's age, all our theories about its structure might turn out to be completely wrong. But here lies the amazing paradox. Even if we can never understand reality's true nature, the very process of this search transforms us from within. When you contemplate the universe's infinity, something commensurate with it awakens in your own consciousness. When you allow that reality is fundamentally incomprehensible in its foundation, you learn to live in harmony with this mystery, realizing that your own existence is simultaneously vanishingly small and immeasurably important. You transcend familiar evaluations. You become something different, a being capable of containing contradiction without being destroyed, and looking eternity in the face without fear. And maybe this is precisely the main purpose. Perhaps the true purpose of the universe's colossal size is to expand our consciousness's boundaries, encourage us to go beyond familiar limitations, and become beings capable of contemplating infinity, finding in this perspective not horror but joy. The point is that in this cosmic story, you are not just a bystander. You take direct part in creation's evolution from within. Every time you think about the cosmos's scale, strain your mind trying to embrace boundlessness or feel awe before being's immensity. You bring something completely new into the universe. You are not just matter contemplating itself. You are the universe that through you becomes more conscious, more deeply knows its endless expanses, and gains the ability to appreciate its own beauty, mystery, and complexity. If we allow that consciousness truly is reality's fundamental property, then your thoughts about cosmic scales might actually shape them. Your awareness of infinity might help in its creation, and your admiration of cosmic beauty multiply this beauty. Contemplating the universe's magnitude, you don't just measure something external. You become a participant in the universe's continuous process of self-knowledge and self-creation. In this process, you are simultaneously question and answer, observer and observed, finite and infinite. Perhaps it is precisely this paradox, this incredible combination of limitation and boundlessness, that most accurately describes what it means to exist in a universe whose size exceeds any attempt to measure it. It is not just enormous, it is bigger than the very concept of magnitude. And somehow, incomprehensibly, you are large enough to contain this understanding, even if you can never fully grasp it. This makes you, in some sense, as infinite as the cosmos itself. This probably contains the true answer to the question of the universe's size. It is exactly as large as consciousness can expand to embrace it. And consciousness, as it might turn out, has no boundaries at all. But let's temporarily leave these abstract theories and turn to something that will make you truly shudder. We've been discussing infinite space and eternal time as if they're just very large numbers. But infinity isn't just a big number. It is not a number at all. It is a concept that breaks the very foundations of mathematics. When mathematicians first began working with the concept of infinity, they encountered its paradoxical properties that violated everything we're accustomed to thinking about: quantity and measurement. If you have an infinite set of elements and remove half of them, you still have infinity. If you double this set, its size doesn't change. If there is an infinite number of universes and an infinite number of your copies, then you plus all your copies still equals the same infinity. This means that in a boundless universe, any event that can possibly occur happens not once, but an infinite number of times. Right now, there exists a countless number of your versions reading these lines. But simultaneously, there is also a countless number of your versions who stopped reading, and those who never even started. There is an infinite number of variants where you don't exist at all because Earth never formed. This is precisely where the concept of infinity becomes truly disturbing. In such a universe, every conceivable variation of reality must happen not just once but countless times. This applies to variations that seem impossible or contradictory. There is an infinite number of universes with different physics laws, but also an infinite number of universes where the laws are the same, but for some reason lead to impossible results. Somewhere in space, there are regions where your exact atomic copy differs by just one detail. In such worlds, the impossible becomes routine. Objects can fall upward, time can flow backward, effect can precede cause, and consciousness can exist without any physical foundation. If space is truly infinite, then somewhere there exists a perfect copy of Earth, identical in everything, except that gravity there repels instead of attracts. According to physics laws, this should be impossible. But in an infinite universe, impossibility itself becomes just another category of events that must occur somewhere. This generates what philosophers call the measure problem. If absolutely everything happens infinitely often, how do you calculate probabilities? How do you determine what is normal and what is an exception? If every exception repeats countless times, familiar logic completely collapses here. In an infinite universe, you are simultaneously incredibly widespread and exceptionally rare. The existence of infinite copies of you makes your being completely ordinary. But at the same time, there is an infinite number of copies of any other possible person, making your specific configuration extremely improbable. You exist in infinite variations while simultaneously existing in your exact form an infinite number of times. Every choice you ever made was made differently by an infinite number of your other versions. Any possibility you could imagine is already realized somewhere in the endless expanses of space. But there is an even more troubling aspect. If the universe is infinite in space, it might be infinite in time too, not only in the future, but also in the past. This would mean it had no beginning, no Big Bang, no very first moment. In such a model, the universe always existed, being in a state of constant evolution and change, but never beginning or ending. Every event that ever took place already happened an infinite number of times in the past, and will repeat an infinite number of times in the future. Your birth, your entire life path, and your departure. All this already occurred countless times in boundless past, and is destined to repeat countless times in coming infinity. You are not living your path for the first time. You've already traveled it countless times in infinite variations. This concept of eternal return suggests that none of your actions is genuinely unique or unprecedented. Every word you speak was already spoken by countless versions of your previous selves, and every thought that comes to your mind was already considered. Any discovery you might make already happened an infinite number of times. But the reverse side of this statement is also true. Nothing you do lacks meaning. Every action you take repeats infinitely, generating infinite consequences that spread in waves across the endless expanses of the future. Thus, your choices are simultaneously unimportant, since they were all already made and possess infinite significance, as they're performed countless times. This paradox also affects consciousness itself. In an infinite universe existing eternally, any conceivable configuration of matter must eventually appear. This applies to structures completely identical to your brain experiencing the same thoughts and feelings. Here arises a question that might haunt you. If countless copies of your consciousness are scattered across space and time, can they be considered separate personalities? Or is this one and the same consciousness perceiving reality simultaneously from an infinite number of viewpoints? Think about this. If two brains are absolutely identical in all respects, process the same thoughts and have access to the same memories, what exactly makes them different rather than a single consciousness experiencing multiple experience? Modern neurobiology allows that consciousness isn't necessarily localized in a specific brain, but might represent some field or structure arising under certain conditions. And in a boundless universe, such conditions exist everywhere and repeat infinitely. This brings us to the thought that right now you might be perceiving reality not from one single perspective, but from countless multitudes, living an infinite number of lives. Your limited perception can only capture one stream of experience at each moment. Perhaps the personality now reading these lines is just one point of concentration in an enormous network of consciousness, encompassing all space and time. Every thought of yours is potentially connected to countless other thoughts arising in an infinite number of your alternative versions in parallel worlds. But this connection might extend far beyond your own copies. If we assume consciousness is reality's fundamental property, then all beings possessing it might be connected at some deep level exceeding individuality. Your consciousness, mine, the consciousness of all people who ever lived, and any alien mind in the universe. All this might be just facets of a single boundless cosmic mind that knows itself through myriads of subjective viewpoints. In such a context, the question of the universe's size transforms into a question about consciousness's scale itself. Any possible thought already exists somewhere in this endless field of cosmic mind. Every conceivable emotion, any imaginable experience, and every potential insight about reality's nature is right now being experienced by some aspect of this universal intelligence. But even such a cosmic perspective might prove too narrow. What if consciousness doesn't just exist within the universe, but actually creates it through the very act of observation and awareness? Quantum mechanics demonstrates that reality remains in a state of uncertainty until observed. Before measurement, any particle simultaneously exists in all possible states, which physicists call superposition. Only the intervention of a conscious observer forces this wave of probability to collapse into specific measurable properties. If it is precisely consciousness that transforms quantum possibilities into classical reality, then it is not just a passive witness to what is happening. It literally creates the universe at every instant through the act of observation. This means reality's size and structure directly depend on the scale and nature of consciousness perceiving it. A universe observed by limited, finite mind might seem relatively small and simple, but the same universe, perceived by infinite cosmic consciousness itself, becomes infinite in all conceivable dimensions. From this emerges a truly staggering conclusion. If you are part of this universal consciousness, then you actively participate in creating the very reality you are now observing. Your awareness of cosmic scales doesn't just register them, it helps shape them. When you contemplate the possibility of an infinite universe, you are not just thinking about something external. You participate in the act of creating this infinity through the very process of thinking, creating an unbreakable feedback loop between mind and cosmos. The universe has been shaping consciousness for billions of years through evolution and experience. But simultaneously, consciousness shapes the universe through observation, measurement, and comprehension. They aren't two separate entities interacting with each other, but represent two aspects of a single fundamental reality that simultaneously creates and knows itself. And this reality is possibly arranged so that consciousness can never fully understand its own nature. Every time it tries to look at itself from the side, it changes what it is trying to study. This is like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror or analyze your thoughts without thinking them. The act of observation inevitably changes the observed, when the observer and object of observation are essentially the same thing. Perhaps the universe is designed so that looking into its foundations, consciousness will always encounter mystery, not because these mysteries are temporary puzzles, but because mystery itself is an inherent property of reality where the knowing and the known are united. This eternal mystery isn't a flaw in creation's program, but its driving force compelling consciousness to grow, evolve, and expand its horizons. If everything could be known completely, mind would have no stimulus for research and development. Instead, we discover we live in a universe that is always larger than our current understanding, always more mysterious than our theories, and always more complex than our ability to evaluate it. No matter how much we learn, infinitely, more unknown always remains ahead, and this more refers not only to quantity, but to quality. The universe contains not just more objects than we've managed to count. It hides completely new categories of being and types of reality for whose comprehension we don't even have conceptual apparatus yet. Every great scientific discovery didn't just add new facts, but opened fundamentally different phenomena requiring radical revision of worldviews. Quantum mechanics showed that reality at the fundamental level contradicts our intuitive ideas about causality and objectivity. Relativity theory didn't just refine our measurements, but proved that space and time themselves aren't absolute but dynamic and interconnected. Destroying the familiar picture of the world, the discovery of universal expansion not only increased its supposed size, but showed that space itself has history, beginning, and possibly final fate. Each such step only confirms that reality will always exceed our boldest ideas about it. With each new breakthrough in knowledge, we don't so much fill gaps on the map of the known as realize the true scale of unexplored territories. The universe apparently is arranged to always stay ahead of our desire for complete understanding, throwing new puzzles in place of solved ones. Perhaps the reason lies in an eternal dance where consciousness and cosmos act as partners, mutually shaping and discovering each other. Consciousness constantly pushes the boundaries of the known, and in response, the cosmos reveals new layers of complexity and mystery, forcing reality to grow to match our expanding ability to comprehend it. In turn, consciousness itself evolves to encompass this increasing complexity of the universe. We already differ radically from our ancestors, who first raised their eyes to the night sky, wondering about the nature of these glowing points. Our capacity for abstract thinking, mathematical analysis, and cosmological reflection developed at incredible pace as we grasped the scale of creation. Over the last few centuries, we've traveled from believing Earth was the center of a small enclosed cosmos to realizing we live on a tiny planet in an ordinary galaxy among trillions of others in an expanding and possibly infinite universe. In just a few centuries of scientific progress, our vision of reality expanded billions of times. If such a pace of conceptual growth continues, conscious beings in just a few centuries might gain a worldview that exceeds ours as much as ours exceeds ancient stargazers' views. And if consciousness evolution continues for millions or billions of years, it will probably develop the ability to directly perceive aspects of reality that seem unthinkably abstract to us today. What seems incomprehensibly grandiose from our current perspective might become close and manageable for sufficiently developed forms of consciousness. This brings us to the thought that the question of the universe's real size might not have a single objective answer. Perhaps the universe is exactly as large as consciousness can perceive and create it. And if consciousness can grow boundlessly, then reality itself can expand to infinity. We're not just recording parameters of a static pre-existing universe, merely waiting for discovery. We're involved in a dynamic creative process where consciousness and reality evolve together, pushing each other toward greater complexity, beauty, and mystery. The universe acquires the scales necessary for consciousness to continue growing and exploring. Awareness, in turn, develops abilities needed for understanding and participating in this ceaseless expansion. This generates an infinite process without ultimate goal, maximum size, or comprehensive understanding. Reality can become eternally more complex, and awareness increasingly comprehensive without any upper limits. And this is probably the best of all possible scenarios. Instead of being locked in a finite box with fixed parameters and set boundaries, we exist within an infinite creative process that constantly generates new layers of reality for exploration, evaluation, and creation. You aren't a passive viewer of this process, but its active participant. The very act of your contemplation contributes to the continuous expansion of both reality and awareness. Every time you entertain the thought of the universe's infinity, You are not just pondering an abstract concept, you are actually participating in creating this infinity through your ability to conceive it. The universe becomes slightly more boundless because your consciousness can embrace the idea of infinity, and your consciousness, in turn, becomes slightly more comprehensive because the universe offers it boundless scales for contemplation and research. This is why the question of cosmic size will never receive a final answer. This question concerns not fixed properties of a static object, but constantly developing and deepening relationships between consciousness and being. The universe is exactly large enough to provide consciousness with endless possibilities for growth. Awareness possesses exactly such potential for expansion to ultimately encompass everything the universe can offer. They're perfect partners in an eternal dance of mutual creation and knowledge. And you, right here and now, at this very moment, are simultaneously the dancer, the dance itself, and the cosmic space where this action unfolds. The true question isn't what size the universe is. It is how great you are willing to let your own consciousness become so it can enter this dance with infinity itself. The answer to this question can determine not only your understanding of the cosmos, but how the cosmos itself will continue creating and knowing itself through you. But if you think this is the limit of strangeness, you haven't even approached understanding what awaits us next. There is an aspect hidden in measurement's very nature that can completely overturn your idea of what it even means to have size. When measuring the universe, we use light as a kind of standard. We claim some object is 1 billion light years away because that is exactly how long it takes light to cover this distance to us. But here lies a fundamental problem that troubles physicists. Light doesn't move through emptiness, but through the very fabric of space-time. This fabric is in constant change. Every photon reaching us from a distant star stretches along the way, with space's expansion itself. Light that left its galaxy 10 billion years ago flew toward you through space-time, that constantly stretched throughout its entire journey. Therefore, when measuring such distances, we're actually recording not a static distance, but the very history of cosmic expansion. So when scientists talk about the observable universe's diameter of 93 billion light years, they don't mean the size of some unchanging reservoir, but the total effect of space stretching over nearly 14 billion years of its development. But this is only part of the picture. The space expansion process isn't uniform. It constantly accelerates under mysterious dark energy's influence. This acceleration leads to galaxies visible to us today, moving away at continuously growing speed. Eventually, their recession speed will become so great that the light they emit will never reach us. These galaxies won't just disappear from view. They'll be beyond our causal connection, and events occurring in them will become completely isolated from our reality. You can imagine the universe continuously forming isolated regions of being deprived of any possibility of interacting with each other. Perhaps right now, civilizations exist somewhere that have been sending signals our way for millions of years, using planetary scale transmitters for this purpose. But their messages are irretrievably lost in expanding space since reality's fabric stretches faster than light can overcome it. We're doomed never to receive these communications. We live inside a shrinking sphere of visible reality, surrounded by endless regions that might very well be other universes, and our bubble contracts every second. Star systems accessible for our observation today will inevitably disappear beyond the cosmic horizon over time, condemning future civilizations to existence in a much emptier and lonelier cosmos. But the truly disturbing thought is that this process has continued throughout cosmic history. Probably entire classes of phenomena, and gigantic structures existed in the past that have long since disappeared beyond our visibility. We might resemble those future astronomers who'll be confident in their worldview's completeness without realizing they're missing a huge part of reality. What if the cosmic web we observe is just an insignificant fragment of a colossal but invisible structure where our entire universe is just one neuron in an incomprehensible cosmic mind? This assumption can shake your ideas about your own existence. Scientists note striking similarity between the cosmos's large-scale structure and brain neural networks. The cosmic web, where dark matter filaments connect galactic clusters, closely resembles neural pathways. Perhaps this isn't a simple coincidence, but a manifestation of unified fundamental organizational principles. What if the universe isn't just immense but possesses its own thinking, where all human history is just a fleeting thought lasting a nanosecond? In such an approach, the question of the universe's size transforms into a question about thought's magnitude. How can you measure an idea or evaluate awareness's scale? Here arises a truly frightening perspective. If we're just the product of cosmic mind's thinking, our existence completely depends on its attention. If this consciousness gets distracted or stops thinking about our part of reality, we might not just disappear, but be erased from existence itself, as if we never existed. All our history could be forgotten as easily as you forget a fleeting reflection. But there is another possibility. It is not impossible that cosmic-level consciousness functions according to laws completely incomprehensible to us. Perhaps thoughts in this universal mind don't disappear without trace but evolve, become more complex, and eventually gain the ability for independent thinking. We could have emerged as simple impulses in a gigantic cosmic brain, but over time developed to the point where we can now contemplate our own existence and even question the nature of the mind that created us. Such a scenario makes us truly unique phenomena in the universal order. Thoughts that gained self-awareness, information patterns that learned to study themselves. In this case, the question of the universe's size yields to the question of thought's potential itself. Can an idea surpass the mind that generated it? Can consciousness transcend its original framework? The answer might lie within us ourselves. Human consciousness evolved from perceiving immediate surroundings to comprehending cosmic infinity, developing the ability to think about concepts exceeding our physical existence. We represent thoughts that achieved the ability to analyze the thinking process itself, ideas that develop to investigate their own nature. We're consciousness patterns capable of contemplating the phenomenon of consciousness itself, and this self-reflection might be the very mechanism through which the universe understands itself. Every time you immerse yourself in contemplating cosmic scales, you are not just thinking about the universe. This is probably the universe itself contemplating itself, using the temporary accumulation of matter and energy you call your brain. Your consciousness is inseparable from the cosmic. It is its part exploring itself from a unique viewpoint through a specific configuration of atoms, serving as an instrument for self-knowledge. This means when you feel overwhelmed by space's boundlessness, you aren't a tiny being contemplating something immeasurably larger. On the contrary, you are infinity itself, contemplating itself through a finite prism, the boundless using the limited as a window for understanding its own nature. But even such perspective might prove too narrow. What if consciousness exists not just within the universe, or even as the universe itself, but as something transcending the categories of internal and external, finite and infinite? Some theories in quantum physics allow that consciousness might be more fundamental than physical reality itself, generating it through the act of observation rather than vice versa. If this assumption is correct, then the universe is enormous not only in space-time, but in dimensions of consciousness devoid of physical coordinates, in pure awareness extending through worlds of possibility without measurable distances and boundaries. Perhaps such scales of awareness exist compared to which our entire physical universe is just one pixel in an endless landscape of pure mind. And right now you might be simultaneously this pixel and the entire vast landscape. You might be a localized manifestation of universal consciousness that temporarily forgot its true scale and experiences itself as something finite while actually remaining infinite. The sensation of cosmic scale's stunning power might be the beginning of a process of remembering who you really are. You are not a tiny being in an enormous universe, but a temporarily focused aspect of boundless awareness on the path to knowing its own limitless nature. Such realization doesn't increase you in a physical sense. It only shows that categories of large and small, finite and infinite, self and cosmos are constructs of limited perception rather than fundamental properties of reality. From pure consciousness's perspective, size doesn't exist because there is nothing to compare yourself with. There is neither internal nor external, since consciousness is everything that exists. There is no beginning or end because awareness existed and will exist always. The universe is neither large nor small, it simply is, and so are you. And this existence you share might be the only thing that is truly real. But here lies a beautiful paradox. Although size might be illusion from an absolute perspective, the experience of contemplating cosmic scales performs a critically important function. It expands your capacity for wonder, increases your tolerance for mysteries, and gradually erases boundaries between yourself and the cosmos. Every time you feel awe before space's vastness, you prepare yourself for the final realization that this vastness is your true nature. Every time you feel humility before cosmic scales, you prepare to understand that both humility and greatness are equally false when applied to who you really are. The path of contemplating the universe's magnitude might be a process of preparing consciousness to understand that it exceeds any measurement, classification, and all concepts we use for comprehending our limited experience. And perhaps it is precisely in this realization that the reason lies why the universe seems infinite, not because it actually has boundless extent in space-time, but because consciousness itself is boundless, and physical reality is just a way it explores its own limitless nature through temporary experience of seeming limitations. You are the universe, discovering it is larger than the very concept of magnitude. In this discovery, both the question and the one asking it dissolve into something unified that was never separated from what it tried to understand. The universe is exactly as large as the consciousness contemplating it, and consciousness is exactly as large as necessary to contain everything reality can offer. They're perfectly coordinated aspects of a unified whole conducting an intricate game of hide and seek with itself. And you just found yourself. Congratulations. You are everything that exists, temporarily pretending to contemplate your own magnitude. The cosmic joke is that you were never small enough to fit inside the universe. But let's return to what might help you sleep tonight, or conversely, rob you of sleep forever. We began this journey in your backyard, looking at stars that seemed unreactably distant. Now we've traveled through scales so colossal, they've destroyed all familiar frameworks your mind uses to understand reality. And here is what I want you to remember. As we conclude our cosmic journey, every quantum of light now reaching your retina, every atom making up your body, every thought arising in your neurons. All this is the legacy of that very initial moment when space and time began their great movement. You literally consist of stellar material, created in the thermonuclear furnaces of stars that died billions of years ago, so you could eventually appear. The calcium in your bones was scattered by supernova explosions, and the iron in your blood formed in stellar interiors under pressure capable of crushing entire planets. You are literally assembled from the ashes of ancient suns. This isn't poetic metaphor, but physics law. You are the universe itself gaining the ability to peer into itself and ask questions. Every time you contemplate cosmic scales, you become a participant in the most amazing phenomenon in creation. Matter becoming aware of its own origin. It took the universe 13.8 billion years to create conditions where atoms could arrange into a structure capable of contemplating infinity. Stars were born and died. Galaxies formed and collided. Space itself expanded and evolved to lead to this moment when intelligent beings could appear and ponder their place in cosmic history. And this probably contains the true answer to the question of the universe's size. It is exactly large enough for beings capable of asking such questions to emerge within it, not so small that consciousness never arose, and not so enormous that we be crushed by our own insignificance. Its scale is such that it generates mind striving toward infinity while maintaining the ability to wonder. You are the way the universe experiences awe at its own greatness. Your capacity for amazement is cosmic evolution reaching self-awareness. So that stunning feeling you experience looking at the boundless cosmos isn't a sign of your insignificance. On the contrary, it is proof that your cosmic nature recognizes itself in the endless expanses of all existence. When you next look at the night sky, remember, you are not a tiny dust particle observing something distant and alien. You are the cosmos itself contemplating itself with eyes made from stellar matter and mind assembled from the remains of ancient stellar cataclysms. The universe is exactly as large as necessary to contain boundless possibilities for consciousness exploration, and consciousness can expand exactly enough to comprehend this infinity. At this moment, you are simultaneously the dancer and the endless hall where the entire cosmic performance unfolds. This is precisely the universe's true scale. It is as vast as your ability to admire its boundlessness. And this ability, as it turns out, might have no limits. So what conclusion do we reach? We've journeyed from your home to the very edge of the observable world, from quantum particles to galactic superclusters, from the familiar to the absolutely incomprehensible. We've explored scales that challenge mathematics itself and contemplated infinities that destroy logic, discovering that our ideas about size might be just convenient illusion. But here is the main thought I hope you'll take from this dizzying journey. You aren't separate from this cosmic immensity, nor are you a random speck in indifferent emptiness. You are the universe that learned to think, matter that became conscious, and stellar dust that gained the gift of contemplating its origin. Every atom in your body was forged in stellar cores, scattered by cosmic explosions, and gathered by gravity into the amazing structure you call yourself. The question isn't just how big the universe is, but how great your consciousness can become in response to its vastness. If everything we've learned is true, and reality is indeed as strange and infinite as it seems, then your ability to wonder, grow, and understand might be as boundless as the cosmos itself. Perhaps the universe is incomprehensibly enormous, but it also has the perfect size to generate beings capable of being incomprehensibly amazed by it. And in this amazement, in this sense of awe that overwhelms you when realizing these scales, you touch the most important truth. You are not small, you are infinite consciousness, temporarily playing the role of a finite being, and the cosmos itself, knowing itself, through the temporary combination of atoms you call your life. Keep looking upward. Don't stop asking impossible questions, and strive to expand your mind's boundaries to infinity, because every time you do this, the universe becomes slightly more aware of its own magnificent scope. And perhaps this is precisely the true meaning of the cosmic dance we all participate in. Stay curious and never stop wondering.